I forgot myself. I forgot to move myself over to the side. Oopsies. Usually I'll like come in from the side and I'll be like, "Hello, everyone." See, okay, you know, we'll pretend like this didn't happen. Hang on. Damn it! I tried to sneak under, but I couldn't bring my mouse down far enough. I tried to sneak. And I was gonna come in from this side and surprise you. Ah. But I hope everyone's doing very, very well. Happy Friday, as they say. It's nice. I finished up a little bit early today, and I'm gonna be honest. I did not work very hard today. My brain was quite tired, and it wasn't tired in the sense of like, oh, I'd been working so hard the week, or like I'm getting burnt out or anything. It was completely and utterly alcohol. We had a nice night out in work last night with some nice food as well, and I drank a good bit because look, when there's a free bar, a free tab, up to a certain point, but like there was well enough to the point I think I had about 9, was it? I think it was 8 whiskeys, and then I had to pay for my 9th one. it was really funny, you know. Oh, welcome in. Hello. Thank you very much for the follow, Kaz _ Akaria. Welcome in. I remember when the tab ran out, I went up to get my next drink, and I said to the bartender, I heard a tab there. He's like, yeah. And then he as he was making my drink for me, he kind of called me over. He was like, you know, they did a study on this. Let me tell you this now. He had a very thick accent. He was like, let me tell you this now. They did a study on this, and it turns out, and it's scientifically proven that alcohol tastes 87% worse when you have to pay for it. And I think he's right, because I was very disappointed when I had to pay for my drink, especially after a night of not paying for anything. It's like a punch in the gut. It's like someone just came up to you and hooked you right in the center of your stomach, lovingly punching you many times. What am I talking about? But no, I had a very fun night, very enjoyable, a lot of good crack. Although I will say, I did end up throwing up, but it was like a tactical throw up. I kind of realized that maybe I had a bit too much to drink and a little bit too much food. So once I was like near home, I kind of just walked into the little woods near me, and I just threw up. I was like, yeah, let's just get this over with. It's not that bad, I suppose. Probably not the. Listen, I usually don't talk about throwing up to the new viewer who just joined. I swear, I don't just talk about like I'm not like a party animal. But it was actually very fun. I had a very fun end to that night because I got a taxi back, a horse and carriage, of course. Well, not even a carriage. It was a horse and chariot because, you know, we're rocking it here in the more mystical areas of Ireland. Although I will say there are actually people on chariots. You do see them. They're not exactly very nice chariots. They're more just seats. But it's not uncommon to see in Ireland some people known as the traveller community, the travellers, riding horses along the road on their carts. Hi Clever, welcome in. I was just talking about what I got up to last night. I was drinking and eating and hanging out with work friends. But I got a taxi back on the carriage, you know, on the chariot, and there was a Polish fella who was driving, and we were chatting all the way, and once we pulled up near my house, we ended up sitting there for, I would say about like after I had paid, we ended up sitting there for about, I want to say, a good 8, maybe even 10 minutes just talking. We were just talking about history, He was telling me a little bit about Polish history. I kind of knew some of the stuff, like the Winged Hussars. Thank you very, very much, Clever, for the hydrate. I have been hydrating a lot because, you know, when alcohol dehydrates you when you wake up in the morning. I don't know if my voice sounds any bit lower than usual. I feel like it still might be a little bit, what's the word? Sore, I guess. It's not even sore, it's just strained, yeah. Thank you very much, Clever. But when I woke up this morning, me and that taxi driver, we had a lovely conversation. And I was still kind of buzzed, but it was really funny because, like, after about 5 minutes, I was like, I'm sorry, I am probably taking up your day. Like, you are working right now. I'm like wasting your working time. But he was sound. He was like, no, you're fine. So we had a lovely conversation. But when I woke up this morning, I didn't have a hangover, so that was pretty good. But I was very tired, and I had to work today as well. We had a half day today. So there was a reason they didn't want to do the night event on a Friday when you get a half day anyway. People wouldn't show up. I think they still would. There's free beer and food. I think that's a good way to get people out. But when I woke up, I was like, my voice was like down here, and it was really scratchy, and I actually should have, you know what I should have done? And next time I go drinking, I'll record some voice notes so you guys can hear. Well, maybe I should do that anyway, like when I just wake up one day and I'm kind of eepy. And my voice, you know, your voice has that morning quality to it, that kind of roughness. I should do that anyway, but like if I'm out drinking and it's particularly strong some morning, I should definitely record it, because I think people like that type of stuff. You know what I realized, actually? I didn't hear anything about it. I guess I don't keep up as much with Niji Sanji these days, but I just realized that Hex Haywire, man, the psychologist who would encourage people to send him their problems and tell them about their thought. No, not a psychologist. He was a therapist. That was the route he went down. Yep, that's normal as a VTuber. That's a normal thing to do. He apparently retired or graduated. I'm not too sure what exactly happened. I think I saw someone posted some image of like his stream title on his indie account called the Truth. So I'm guessing nothing actually happened, and he's just creating drama for the sake of creating drama to try and like become the next K9 Kuro. But I always think that Hex looked at Luxium, and he was like, oh my god, I am just going to be Vox, but more pandering. I think out of in contrast to a lot of other VTubers who I think join corpos and they're a little bit unsure of what they want to be. They have an idea in mind, or the creators of the character might have an idea in mind. I think Hex came into Niji Sanji with a very, very distinct idea of who he wanted to be and the type of audience he wanted to get. And I'm going to tell you what that audience was. It was the Vox Akuma audience. He wanted, because he comes in there with a really deep voice, like deeper than Vox's. I think he might. I like. It reminds me of Corpse as well, but Corpse had an actual like condition that caused his voice to be ridiculously deep. Corpse husband, I think his name was. I think he like left the internet. I don't know why. It just popped into my mind there. But Hex was always a character that I wasn't a fan of his. I wasn't a fan of his. I don't know, something about him I just didn't like. I didn't like the way he did stuff, I suppose, is the best way to put it. It could be, just not to my taste. Not to my taste. But I'll have to do some sleuthing on Twitter to find out if there is actually anything going on. Because there always seems to be something happening in Niji, and you need to, I don't know, like, check out how they're doing. Oh, another annoying thing, actually, before I start our reading for today, that happened to me was, My you know that thing you use to pay for money? Not money. You use for pay for things, but not money. You know, the cards. Mine is set to expire quite soon. Quite soon, as in tomorrow, or well, I guess the day after tomorrow. And I have not received a replacement card. They're meant to send one out automatically. All card companies that I know of send out a replacement card automatically, like a week or two before they expire. Mine hasn't. So, yeah, I'm not going to be able to access my money in the next 2 days. Great. I'm going to order a replacement though. I'm just going to do that through the app. Although I tried it 2 days ago. I just went into the options to see what would happen, and it said we cannot replace your card right now. So, yeah. That's fun. Thankfully, like any direct debits or things still go through the account number, and I'm not in any fear of missing any payments. So don't worry, guys. I live out in the woods. I don't have to pay rent. That's fine. We have a nice cozy little fire. You guys can be like little Ruadh over there. Ruadh comfy, very comfy. But going to what we're going to be reading today, we're going to be going back to our book all about medieval Ireland. We've actually made some decent headway. What I need to do is I need to record the first 30 pages that I read, which I think would be a very, very good thing to do. I can hear people a bit far away from me shouting, so I can't say for certain if you guys can hear them. I would hope not. I'm going to... You know what I'm going to do real quick, actually? I probably should have done this earlier, but I am going to take some photos of the maps, and I'm going to have those ready to go. Because I think this one is going to go... today's reading is going to be all about the specific groups of medieval Ireland. And there's a lot of... as someone who has read some books around this time period, there is so many names. I don't want to show you guys my hand. But who doesn't love them? Everyone loves maps. Maps are great. Just want to make sure you guys can't see. Oh, cool. My phone has like a scanning thing. That's great. It can just take a photo of the map. Is that clear enough? I think it's clear enough. And the next one, which is a little bit after. I think what we're going to see is we're going to be learning about specific dynasties and different groups. Specifically the Unail, Connaughta, the Ule, and maybe the Dalgaish. I have a feeling when we get to Munster, there'll be a lot of talk of the Éigeanachta. They were kind of the primary family in Munster for quite a while. Their main family kind of headquarters, I guess dynastic area was and they controlled most of like there was the Éigeanachta, but then there was all of the branches, like the other branching families. It would be like something Éigeanacht or Éigeanacht something. Yeah, the next maps I can get later. They deal more with the post 12th century. But wait, no, hang on. I have to go on to like Google and grab these. Hang on a moment. But I think it's going to be very interesting because I think we're going to go specifically. There's going to be looking at the Unail, and that's because they are by far, I would say, the most important dynasty around this time period of the 500 AD to 1100 AD, and even I mean, not still, but like they were pretty much the dominant dynasty. Let me just upload this real quickly, and then we can get started. Where is it? Make sure I don't upload myself, even though I don't think you guys would see it. I'd have to manually add myself, which would be kind of odd. You know that happens. I remember, like, back when VTubers were a thing for a while. Obviously, loads of people were were a thing. They still are a thing. What am I talking about? But when they were... What's the word that I'm looking for? When they were first kind of starting to come around, you know, there was all those videos of VTuber exposes himself. A female VTuber is actually a guy, and it's like they show their face or something. It's like I'm gonna spoil things. Maybe it was a little bit different, but I feel like it would be very hard to do that. I feel like it would be very, very hard to accidentally show your face on stream. So, you know, if that happens, more than likely, it's not definite, but more than likely, it was probably on purpose. I just need to download these very quickly. I'm going to organize it later, but I will say it's going to pain me not organizing into a file straight away. Actually, no. I'm going to organize that because that would anger me. I have to put it into a folder and I have to name it. Medieval Ireland. And that should be both of ours. No, I want to copy in one. And we'll shrink that down. Okay, so that's the later. Oh god, nope, I shrunk the wrong thing. Wrong thing. So we will have this ready to go when we need it. Hey. And then the other one, it's going to be quite large. Oh, maps are so great. I love maps when we're reading about things. They're so handy. Okay. People comment on your face when you grew up. What? I got comments on my face. I got comments. A lot of people say that I looked quite old. Not old. I didn't look old. I'm not old, guys. I'm 23. 2020. Oh no. Ooh. Uh-oh. I don't think it matters. How many? There's thousands of people. Oopsies. My kayfabe, immersion ruined. I'm sorry, guys. What did I say? 1700 and... No, wait, it would be... I'm saying around the 2nd century, wasn't it? Yeah, so about 1800 and so. 1800 years old, I swear. Gotta do better. I mean, Gura isn't always swimming in water, so I think I'm okay. But I mean, I got comments that when I was, you know, that I would look older than I was. People would often be kind of surprised. My voice broke a lot quicker than everyone. You're gonna have the date of the Battle of Culloden memorized for when you eventually get into VTubing. Good idea. But my voice broke kind of quite young, so it's funny. Sometimes you see you had, like, you know, people would be going up to give speeches at, like, when in, like, school events, and they'd all have the high squeaky voice, and I wasn't like I was deep down here, but I was definitely lower than a lot of people, noticeably so. My family always said it was very funny to watch for them, one, to kind of have that contrast and know it was coming, and then seeing other people's reactions. Of course, you know, a year or two later, everyone else went through it. But I think we're going to get into the reading. And what I might do is I'm going to pull up... Is it this map I want? This is the map I want. Now, how do I... What's the best way to do this? Because I don't want to cover up Ruadh comfy. Wait, hang on. There we go. Oh god, that looks silly. I don't want to... Oh, wait, no. I know. I'll move to the side. I'll move over here. And then I'll bring this over here. And I will bring that back to a normal shape. I'll make that a little bit larger. There we go. So we have quite a lot going on here, and you can probably see some of the names I was mentioning. The Unail, of course, up in eastern, oh, that would be Western Ulster. The Ulaid, the Southern Unail. I think even Aragiala had connections to the Unail. But down in the Southern Unail and the Northern Unail, they're often swapping the ownership of the King of Tara as sort of a symbol of their high kingship. Then you have down in Munster, you have the Aegonacht, and you can see just how many Aegonacht there is. They were a very powerful family, particularly the Aegonacht Cashel. And you can even see marked here, Cashel, the Rock of Cashel. It's a very, very cool place, and I would definitely recommend anyone going there to go to it. You have Connacht of what's in Irish? It's Con of the 100 Battles, but I can't remember the Irish name for it. Lagan. Then there was another group. Yes, down here you see Osrig. This was a lesser kingdom, but I think around the 800s, if I remember what was happening around that time period correctly. Lagan kind of started struggling a good bit more. Whatever happened, and you see Osrig rise as a much more powerful kingdom. This is pretty much Kilkenny, but I think they took over a good amount of area. But this is all we're going to be learning about in this stream, so I think we should get into it, because this one's all about local histories. Kingdom power scaling. Yeah, you have provinces, you have lesser kingdoms and peoples, other dynasties and subject peoples. And I will apologize again. There's probably some stuff that I'm going to be mispronouncing. Trying my best to pronounce it, but like some of this is Old Irish, some of this is around this period would be Middle Irish, and that can still have different pronunciations, but I will do my best to be at least accurate somewhat, or at least flow correctly. Hello Nex, welcome in. It's really interesting, the firewood sounds, storytelling, and eating ramen noodle cups. Can I ask you guys, is the sound of they're like crickets in the background? It's like that's not what crickets sound like. They don't go that's a squirrel. Is that coming through? Because I added this noise recently. I just want to make sure that that audio balance is correct. I'm wondering if maybe I should up it just a teensy bit. Maybe not. I think it's okay. Like the animals at night in the background. Okay. We're gonna begin. The Unail. Unail claimed descent from a semi-legendary figure, Niall of the Nine Hostages, or Niall Nogalucht. According to later myths, Niall was abandoned as a child and raised by a poet. Once his true parentage is revealed, he competes against his brothers in various feats. In one of these competitions, the brothers must draw water from a well presided over by a monstrous old woman who demands a kiss from each of them. Only Niall complies enthusiastically. Only Neil complies enthusiastically with her request. And the woman is transferred into a beautiful lady representing the sovereignty of Ireland. And again, this was mentioned in some other stuff before, but this idea of the sovereignty of usually the Sheed people, the Tuatha Dé, or some sort of sovereign goddess, coming and sleeping with the correct or the legitimate king to rule over a certain people. This was a very common theme in Irish around this time period in Irish mythology. Niall may have been a figure of the 5th century. In legend, his sons are represented as contemporaries of St. Patrick, but this may be a fiction. Stories of Patrick's favour or disfavour towards different sons were used retrospectively to explain why their descendants succeeded or failed politically. The label O'Neill can no longer be can be no older than the 6th century, and yet by the end of that century, O'Neill had emerged as the dominant dynasty in the northern half of Ireland. By the 8th century, their lands extended from Donegal to Dublin, excluding the province of Ulster. So, this would pretty much be Northern O'Neill, Southern O'Neill, but then I'm guessing what they're saying is excluding the province of Ulster, what they're meaning is the Ulaid over here and the Argiela. A significant theme in early chronicle records is a struggle for control of the Midlands between the descendants of Neil and the rulers of Leinster, and that's Lagan down there. It is claimed that Briga was won by Corpra, son of Niall, from the Leinstermen in the 490s. The plain of Meath was then taken from Leinster by Feichu, son of Niall, at the Battle of Druim Durg, near Downpatrick, County Down, in 516. Oh wait, I should have my pointer. Do I not have my pointer? I'm going to add my pointer. No, I don't want to remove that, because then I can point out certain things. Where's my text? There it is. Pointer. And I'll just do this. No, that looks silly. There we go. Gonna make it a little bit smaller. And just sit there. Nice. So, the places I mentioned there was Brega, and then this is just kind of the area of Meath. So this is sort of, you can imagine this is Meath. Now, in modern Ireland, Leinster is pretty much this. This is Munster, Connacht, and then Ulster. But in this period, there was pretty much kind of like 5 provinces in a sense. There was Munster, Leinster, Connacht, Ulster, and Meath. That's kind of a way you can see kind of the overall provinces. But obviously there were different kingdoms in different areas too. Here we start to get into quite difficult names. The conquests were consolidated by the great-grandsons of Niall, Tuathal Malgarb and Diarmait Mac Curvil, in the 6th century. The descendants of Diarmait retained power in the Midlands of Ireland as kings of the Southern O'Neill. They were split into 2 main groups that dominated the East Midlands, namely Síl Néad Ó Slán and Clan Holman. Holman. In the northwest of Ireland, 2 other branches of Niall's descendants wielded power. Cneal Conall and Kennel Nyon controlled the kingship of the Northern O'Neill. Various related and unrelated groups were brought under the overlordship of Northern and Southern O'Neill within this wide arc of territory. From the 730s until the 10th century, Clan Holman in the south and Kennel Nyon in the north alternated in holding the overship of all O'Neill. The breakdown of this relatively stable arrangement preceded the decline of the O'Neill as the most powerful rulers of Ireland. So you can see, I assume the names would be visible. Here they are. The Kennel Conall. Can we see the other one? Kennel Nyon. There we are. Right here. So it said that, and then Clon, where was it? Maybe it doesn't have the names down here. That's annoying. Well, I guess this is just areas, so they would have been down here, but mainly it was Clonholm. Sorry, it's a CH sound, so it's in the back of the throat, but my throat is kind of sore at the moment over the drink, so let me try something. Okay, apologies. The Northern Unail. The heartland of Northern Unail came to comprise the areas of the modern counties of Donegal, Tyrone, and Londonderry. Oh, excuse me, Londonderry? I'm sorry, Book. What do you mean, Londonderry? It's Derry. It's just Derry. It's just Derry. Initially, their territories lay west of the River Foyle, and their main royal seat was at Aileach, in the Inishowen Peninsula, where the impressive stone fort of Grenon still stands. 3 main dynasties presided over Northern Unail: Kenil Conail, Kenilnoan, and Kenilnani, claiming descent from 3 rudders. I believe Aileach is up here. Their power also extended to ecclesiastical politics, for St. Columba and subsequent abbots of Iona belonged to this dynasty. The supremacy of the Unail in the north of Ireland was established at the Battle of Magrath, Moira, County Down, in 637, when Donal mac Éadó of Kenil Conal Kenil defeated the forces of the Ulaid and the Dalriata. So the Dalriata over here and the Ulaid. And the Dalriata are actually a very interesting group. You may notice that the Dalriata are very, very close to Scotland. Now, in around I can't remember the exact dates, but around the 700s, or kind of during the time of the Romans, the Caledonians were known as the group there. But there was but you could also call them the Picts. There was a group known as the Picts. However, in around, I think the 700s, 800s, the Dalriata actually expanded into Scotland. They invaded Scotland, they established themselves, and they effectively were the group that turned Scotland into the land of the Scoti, of the Irish. Of course, there was a time of the Vikings coming along as well, and kind of wrecking shit in Northumbria, but a lot of the strong, obviously the Picts would have had their own Celtic, but I don't know if the Picts were a Brythonic group, but the Dalriata were an Irish group, and they invaded Scotland and established their own centres of control. In the 730s, Kenilnoan challenged the power of Kenil Conail in a series of battles over the land of Magniha. Kenilnoan emerged victorious, and their king, Ead Alon, asserted his power over all Unail. He defeated the Ulaid at the Battle of Faughart, County Louth, in 735, taking the strategic islands of Conally. Oh God. Oh, wait, who's raiding me? Oh, hello! Hello, Momonga. Hello. How are you? Thank you for the raid. Thank you. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. Hi, Teal. Hi, Momonga. I love those emotes. I love those emotes so much. Squish, 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 squish. I like to imagine that it's my hand. Like, my hand is invisible, and I'm just squishing you guys. Let me, hang on, do a very quick shout out at Momonga. That one's cute as well. Jumping. But welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. My name is Ruadh. What you see before you is a map of Ireland around the 500s, 600s. We're currently reading about medieval Ireland in a fine book by Claire Downham. We're a good bit into the book, but we're learning all about the history of the various dynasties that would come to rise to power and start to wane in power throughout around the 500s to 1100s. We're currently at kind of the start of this. We're looking at the Northern Unail and the Southern Unail. The Unail being a very, very important dynasty in Ireland around this time period, being descendants of the great Niall of the Nine Hostages, or Niall Nogalucht. We're learning all about how various different groups believed they came from his brothers, or his sons, I should say, and are kind of battling for dominance. And we've just learned that Kenil Conail over here were sort of the dominant group for a time, but as well as the Canail Niani, but eventually the Canail Nyon ended up kind of dominating the Northern O'Neill and all of the O'Neill at this time. Later on, another branch of the O'Neill would establish themselves down here in Meath, and they two groups, two dynasties would end up kind of agreeing to swap the title of the High Kingship of Ireland every generation, or after every dynast or king died. Now, of course, they didn't actually have dominion over all of Ireland. The High Kingship was sort of it was a title that was recognised, but it wasn't accepted. Just because you were the High King didn't mean you had control over Connacht or Lagan. So, Canail Nyon emerged victorious under King Aed Alan, or Aed Alan, asserted his power over all O'Neill. Oh, sorry, Mamunga, I forgot to ask, what were you doing today? Did you have a nice stream? I hope you had a lovely stream. And I hope if you need to, go off and have a cup of tea or some honey. People like honey for their throat afterwards. Or you need to go off and do something. Don't worry. Go off and relax after a stream. But thank you again for the raid. He defeated the Ulaid at the Battle of Fagurt, County Louth in 735, taking the strategic lands of Conail Mirhana on the east coast. In 738, he also won a great victory over Leinster at Aud Stenig, Ballyshowen, County Kildare. Aed's successors continued to maintain the supremacy of the Canail Nyon over the north, winning a further victory over Canail Conail at the Battle of Clotoc. Don't worry, I did some horror games. Ooh, you're gonna chill here while eating. It's 1 a.m. here right now. Oh god, it's a little bit late, but it's the weekend. It's the weekend. It's fine to stay up late. I hope you're having something nice and yummy. Canail Nyon continued to pursue their ambitions to wider hegemony in Ireland, alternating in the kingship of Tara with their southern O'Neill counterparts. In 803, their king, Aed Ordnia, harried Leinster, and in the following year brought an army to the northern borders of the province and proceeded to divide it in between two kings. Aed's son, Niall Céile, also extended the power of the dynasty by winning a major victory over the Aragiala and the Ulaid in 827. This brought Canail Nyon the over-kingship of the lands around the important church of Armagh, of which they became major patrons. And Armagh and many of the other monasteries at this time, they were the ones who were taking care of the history. They were recording the annals. So we have various annals in Ireland. The annals of the Four Masters, the annals of Clonmacnoise. And they, if you had the support of them and you gave them patronage, they would look quite nicely on you. There's actually a very interesting thing that when Brian Boru, who came from the Daish, or the Dalcaish, down in Munster, when he was really starting to cement his place as a major player, I think it was in Armagh. The Armagh annals would mention him, but they wouldn't recognise his position because they were mainly the supporters of the O'Neill. However, over time, as he really continued to extend his power and ultimately, at a point, I would argue, was a true High King, they do recognise his position at a point. So having the local monasteries, or very powerful ones such as Armagh, under your control was a very big deal. From the late 9th century, Vikings added an element of instability into the political strategies of Canail Nyon. The reign of Aed Finlia, 879, in which he died that year, witnessed periods of alliances and defiance of different Viking groups. His son, Niall Glundubh, would fall in battle against the Dubliners, and another son, Muirchertach, was slain in battle against the same enemy, despite his earlier victories against them. Muirchertach's death in 943 helped trigger a succession dispute over the kingship of the Northern Unail and the kingship of Tara. A candidate from Caníl Conail, Ruadh Ua Conanan, would briefly rise to power before Caníl Neoin were able to reassert their supremacy in the north under Donal Ua Níl, son of Muirchertach. Muirchertach. I apologise for my pronunciation, it is not the best. Many of these names are quite awkward. His reign witnessed a struggle with the southern Unail, paving the way for the decline of the kingship of Tara. At the eve of the 11th century, Caníl Neoin sought to resist the rise of the Munster king Brian Boru with limited success. The fortunes of the dynasty improved under the kingship of Donal Ua Lochlein at the end of the 11th century. He managed to establish authority across the north of Ireland and the southern Unail, but his achievements would be limited by Brian Boru's grandson, Muirchertach Ua Brian. The southern Unail. Two great dynasties would come to dominate the lands of the southern Unail that comprised the East Midland territories of Brega, Meath and Terba, or Tetba. So, this region, pretty much, the area labelled southern Unail. These were Síl Naido Slán in Brega in the east, and Clan Colman in Meath in the west. The royal sites of Síl Naido Slán included Orstown or Rath Aether and Lagor or Loch Nagbor. From the 9th century were associated with a hill fort at Noat known as Nogba in the landscape of prehistoric tombs. And these type of prehistoric tombs would have been the dolmens and various other oh god, what were their names? There's a specific term for the prehistoric tombs, and I've drawn a blank on them. What kind of tombs are in Ireland? There's passage tombs, court cairns, and portal tombs, and wedge tombs. Megalithic. That's the term I was looking for. Megalithic structures. Hello, Crespian. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us again. It's always a pleasure to have you. I am struggling my way through some of the pronunciations in the book, but we're doing our best. Clan Clonmaine presided over the Hill of Uisneach, an archaeological landscape that was regarded in Irish mythology as the meeting point of all the ancient provinces of Ireland. Other sites include Crow Innis on Loch Ennell and Rathconnell near Mullingar. Despite their common descent from Diarmait Mac Cairbeal, the two dynasties of Síl Naido Slán and Clan Colman were already opposed by the early 7th century. They fought on opposing sides at the Great Battle of Magaroth in Ulster. Initially, Síl Naido Slán was the dominant dynasty in the southern Unail, but power shifted west in the early 8th century when a feud within Síl Naido Slán led to a series of killings. Clan Clonmaine was able to capitalise on their rivals' bloodshed and rise to power. Clan Clonmaine would continue to wield authority over the southern Unail for much of the early Middle Ages. The growing power of the Unail led to an attempt by Mael Shachnail Macrail Ruaned of the Clan Clonmaine to bring all the provinces of Ireland under his lordship. In 845, Mael Shachnail defeated local rivals and then took on the growing threat of Viking invasions by capturing and drowning one of their leaders, Torgis, who had been raiding along the River Shannon, and having him ritually drowned. In the following year, Mael Shachnail succeeded the Caníl Neoin Overking of Tara, Niall Céile. He spent the rest of his days labouring to turn the aspiration of a Unail kingship of Ireland into a realistic ambition. Mael Shachnail won further victories over Vikings in 848 and 849, and in 851 he executed Kinnaid, a king of Brega who had allied himself with the Vikings of Dublin against him. By 860, Mael Shachtnail wielded an authority over much of southern Ireland. However, the Dubliners continued to be a thorn in his side during his campaigns against Ide Finlea of Kenalgnon. On Mael Shachtnail's death in 862, he was commemorated as King of Ireland. He had achieved much and helped establish a secure position for his son and successor, Flann Sinna. Flann would enjoy a remarkably long reign as Overking of the Southern Unail and later King of Tara until his death in 916. And when it mentions groups like the Dubliners, that would have been the Vikings of Dublin. A great rivalry arose between the sons of Flann Sinna, and this caused a rebellion prior to Flann's death. It is tempting to link these chaotic political events to the disposition of silver hoards around Lough Ennel, which date to the reign of Flann. Maybe a slighted father had refused to tell his offspring where the family treasure was hidden. Donchad MacFlean succeeded to rule as King of Tara in 919 and clung to power until 944, blinding one brother, treacherously murdering another, and disposing of a nephew in the process. A succession crisis followed Donchad's death, and a candidate from Shiel Neda Slán was able to seize power. This was Congalach MacMail Mihig, who ruled over as the Overking of the Southern Unail and King of Tara from 944 to 956. He was able to maintain his position against the Northern Unail king, Ruadh Ua Conain, by forging an alliance with Olaf Cuaran, King of Dublin. So, interesting, Cuaran. That's a Cuaran, I suppose would probably be the better pronunciation, but that's almost getting into an Irish name, but his first name is Olaf. So, it seems like around this point the Vikings are starting to intermarry. On Congalach's death, the alternating succession of Clan Colmain and Kenalgnon to the kingship of Tara was restored. Mael Shachtnail MacDonald of Clan Colmain would be the last king of Southern Unail to wield significant power in Ireland. In 980, Mael Shachtnail, this is a different one to the first one mentioned, hastened the end of the reign of Olaf Cuaran, King of Dublin, by defeating him in battle at Tara. For the next decade, Mael Shachtnail may have wielded significant influence in Dublin while he was ruled by his brother-in-law, Glún Éireann. When Glún Éireann was killed when drunk by one of his slaves in 989, Mael Shachtnail attacked the port in a bid to bring it under his control. The major challenge in Mael Shachtnail's reign was the rise of Brian Boru, Overking of Munster. And I have a great book all about Brian Boru's rise that goes deep into all of this history that we're learning about, particularly the stuff that's going on in Mumu or in Munster at the time, or Moomain, depending. Mael Shachtnail was a vigorous ruler and master of grand political gestures. In 982 he invaded Brian's political heartland and cut down the royal inaugural tree of his people at Mag Éidir, County Clare, and had it turned into firewood. Some years later, in 999, Mael Shachtnail took the Stone of Alba, the most important monument of Shiel Neda Slán, and converted it to millstone. Mael Shachtnail also sought to build a causeway across the River Shannon at Athlone, so that he might use his troops to outmaneuver Brian Boru, but his tactics failed. From 1002, Mael Shachtnail was subject to the Munster Overking. Although Mael Shachtnail could claim to be the most powerful king of Ireland for the years between the death of Brian Boru in 1014 and his own demise in 1022, future kings of the Southern Unail were unable to achieve a position of political dominance. For the remainder of the 11th century, the rulers of Munster, Connacht and Northern Unail would hold greater power in Ireland. Now we move on to Ulster. The province of Ulster was said to have dominated the northern half of Ireland in prehistory. The story of its former greatness, reaching as far as the River Boyne, was preserved in saga. The province appears to have diminished in size through the growth of the Unail power from the 6th century. The early medieval province was very different in its geographical scope from the modern one. There were three main political groups in Ulster: the Dal Fiatach, occupied the east coast, eastern County Down, with their political centre at Downpatrick. So I might try and use my pointer here, for those of you who are looking at the screen. He's talking here about the Dal Fiatach. Downpatrick is here. This group supplied many of the early medieval overkings of the province. Another group, the Cruani, comprised several people, notably the Dal Nerdi, based in Maglina, Malilini, County Antrim, and U Eachuk Cobo, western County Down. Finally, there was the Dal Riata, who held territory along the north coast of Ulster, and in Argyll. So the Dal Riata up here and the Dal Niarda. The early history of the province was characterised by resistance to the growing power of O'Neill, complicated by rivalries between different groups within Ulster. One of the famous early overkings was Beaton MacCarroll, who died in 582. Beaton, that's... Oh no, there's two versions of his name that I'm looking at right now on the same line. One has a fada over the second A, while the other doesn't. The fada is the little line above some of the letters in the names there. They typically kind of elongate the sound. Beaton sought to offset the expansion of the O'Neill by extending his power overseas. He attempted the conquest of Dal Riata in Britain and the Isle of Man. So, notice the Dal Riata extend into the Isle of Man and into Britain, specifically Scotland. In the immediate aftermath of Beaton's death, the Dal Naradi were able to win control over Ulster. A coalition then developed between the Dal Niardi and the Dal Riata to confront the O'Neill. This led to the Battle of Magaroth, or Moira in County Down, in 637, where the Ulster forces were defeated and their overking, Congal Ceach, was killed. The significance of this event was commemorated in three Middle Irish sagas, Fledduin na Néad, Cat Maig Raha, and Bulla Shivna. The overkingship of the province then swapped between rival groups of Dal Fiatach and the Dal Riata, with Dal Fiatach often holding the upper hand. Nearly a century later, a Dal Fiatach overking, Aed Ruin, suffered another major defeat against the O'Neill at Foggart, County Louth, in 735. So you can see some of the battles that were mentioned in the previous histories are coming back here, because obviously they're all in the north of Ireland, so they would be very much connected. Aed and his son Fiachne were able to make some wait, who's this? Oh, Aed Ruin, yes. Aed and his son Fiachne were able to make some territorial gains at the expense of their northern neighbour Dal Niardi. The struggle with O'Neill over the southern borderlands of Ulster continued into the 9th century, with the Ulster forces under Meardach mac Éada being dealt another blow by the King of Tara, Niall mac Éada, at the Battle of Letcam in the lands of the Argiala in 827. In the 8th century, the ambitions of the Kings of Ulster were contained by the O'Neill along their landward borders. Across the North Channel, however, the growth of Pictish power would also curtail the power of the Dal Riata in North Britain. Scottish Dal Riata stretched from Eigg in Kintyre and inland to the mountains called Druim Alban, the spine of Britain. This area was hammered by Ongus, son of Fergus, king of the Picts, in the year 741. At the same time, Indratoch, king of the Dal Nerdi, attacked the Irish lands of the Dal Riata, and it may be from this point that the Scottish and Irish parts of the Dal Riata come under separate rule. The arrival of Scandinavian pirates at the end of the 8th century would have further consequences for large parts of the Dal Riata were settled by Vikings. The coasts of the north-east Ireland were vulnerable to seaborne attack. In 811, an early victory is recorded by the Ulaid against Vikings, but this did not prevent further attacks. A series of raids in the 820s and 830s culminated in the foundation, and I will mention this because I think it's a very important thing. in the north, particularly where the southern O'Neill were the strongest, the Vikings were never, except maybe, in Meath, obviously Dublin was established, but in kind of the main areas in the north, the Vikings never were able to really establish much control. They as they did in the south of Ireland. And there's some ideas that this may have been, this control over these Viking-controlled towns, Dublin, Tipperary, Waterford, by Brian Boru, were what allowed him to eventually control a lot of money, a lot of manpower, a lot of influence. And it was actually almost a success of the Northern O'Neill that was to their detriment going forward. A series of raids in the 820s and 830s culminated in the foundation of short-lived Viking camps at Strangford Lough, Carlingford Lough, and Lough Neagh. And that's this loch here. It's the largest loch in Ireland. Viking wars were recorded in the region in the 870s, and a further period of intense activity is noted from the 920s to the 940s. Nevertheless, kings of Ulster were successful in resisting territorial conquests. The Dal Neardi grew in strength during the 9th century, perhaps as a consequence of the Dal Riata and the warfare between the Dal Fiatach and the Vikings. The Dal Neardi seized control of the overkingship of Ulster several times during the late 9th and early 10th centuries. However, Dal Fiatach power was firmly re-established during the long reign of Eachad mac Ardgael, 972 to 1004, and his dynasty ruled the province thereafter. Permanent settling is tremendously hard, especially when the people don't want you there. But they were quite good. Many of the areas that they established were initially just Viking ports and camps. But obviously a place like in Dublin or Waterford and Tipperary, they became very good. Oh my god, I forgot to turn off the ads for later. That's annoying. Hang on a moment. I missed the fact that we had ads. I apologize, everyone. Let me turn off the ads. Hang on, I'll just go. Apologies about the ads. I'm very annoyed. I have them on to get the first hour pre-roll free. And I will usually turn them off, but sometimes I forget. But thank you, Crespian, for the hydrate. Ow, my face. Throwing the ball of water at me. And my ball of water, even though that might look plastic, my water bottle is metal. So that hurts a lot. But I know it's coming from a place of love. It's tough love, as they say. And it's good. It's very important to keep your voice hydrated while you're reading. But I was thinking, I mentioned this earlier in the stream at the very beginning, that when I woke up this morning, because I'd been out drinking, my voice was really hoarse, that kind of morning voice, but it was more than usual because I'd been drinking, obviously, so I was kind of more dehydrated. My voice was even lower. And I was thinking what I should do is, if I wake up in the morning and I have a particularly deep morning voice, I should record like a voice note or two, because I think people like that type of stuff. And then if I'm like that again, where I'm sleeping, or not I'm sleeping, I'm drinking the night before, and I have it's particularly deep, I think I'll definitely record that one, even if it might be a struggle to get out of bed, because I don't know, people like that type of stuff. People like that type of stuff. They like hearing their VTubers all hoarse and tired. Okay, so I'm going to wait another about 45 seconds and I'll get back into the reading. Although one of the annoying things is that sometimes it's like, oh, the ads are in progress, and then it's only after the ads on my end say they're finished that it starts for other people. It's like, oh my god, that's so frustrating. Why? Why, Twitch? Why would you do this to me? I don't even know. I feel like a lot of people don't even get ads from me. A lot of people are just like, oh yeah, I never get ads. But, it is what it is, I suppose. And they're 3 minutes as well, because I have it set to get the maximum that I can in one go. Anyway, I think it's time to get back to our reading. I hope my stumbling over the odd names here and there isn't interrupting the flow too much. Where were we? Yes. From the late 10th century, Ulster would come under pressure as both Unail and the Dalcaish sought to establish their dominance in Ireland. In 1003, Brian Boru led the forces of Munster, Meath and Connacht against the Ulster and the Northern Unail. In 1004, Eachod was killed in a major battle against the Northern Unail at the inauguration site of Craib Telcha. There we go. Crew Hill in County Antrim. In the following year, Brian Boru came to Armagh in order to win the support of that famous church. At the same time, he took hostages from Ulster. And this is kind of around his ascendance, his real high point, where he basically had hostages from everyone in Ireland. The province was further weakened by the internecine conflict between members of the Dal Fiatach between the early 11th century. In the late 11th century, overkings of Ulster adopted the tactic of allying with the Munster overkings, Tordelbach and Muratach Uabrian, to offset the threat posed by the Northern Unail. However, this policy would force the province into a damaging war between Muratach Uabrian and Donal Ualach of the Northern Unail. Now we move on to Connacht, and I think we're going to be learning about Con of the 100 Battles. During the early Middle Ages, the lands of Connacht were bounded by Galway Bay in the south and the Drows Estuary in County Donegal in the north. The River Shannon as far as Lough Ree formed the eastern boundary. The province takes its name from the Connachta, a group of dynasties that professed descent from a legendary king, Con Cíthachach. Okay, how am I going to do this one? Con Cíthachach. There we go. Con of the 100 Battles. They claimed common ancestry with the Unail, who were said to have originated in the province. One branch of the Unail, Kennel Cuppery, Droma Cleob, continued to reside within the northern boundaries of Connacht during the early Middle Ages. A number of other peoples, both related and unrelated to the Connachta, dwelt in the rest of the province. In the 6th and the 7th centuries, the most powerful group of Connachta were the Fiachroch. By the 7th century, they were divided into two main groups, the Fiachroch Éadna, who resided in the south, and the Fiachroch Mueda, who held territory around Moy Estuary in the north. So we're talking about these groups, the Fiachroch Éadna and the Fiachroch Mueda. I believe there it is. Cruachu is the kind of major royal site of Connacht. From the 8th century, another Connachta people, the Uabriun, would rise to prominence. Uabriun was divided into several subgroups, the most powerful of which held the fertile lands of Magny in eastern Connacht. This plain included Cruachu, Rathcrogan, County Roscommon, a focus of prehistoric monuments and a site of royal inaugurations. The earliest chronicle of accounts of Connachta are coloured by their relations to the growing power of the Unail. In 561, a battle was fought near Connacht's northern border with the Unail at Cúil Drimna. In this conflict, Éad mac Éachoch, king of Uabrian, Briún I, was allied with the northern Unail and won a victory against the southern Unail king of Tara, Diarmuid mac Curbail. The location of the battle suggests Diarmuid was the attacker. Aid's grandson, Rogalach, would help consolidate the fortunes of the Uabriún I dynasty in the early 7th century. However, Uafrihoch remained a power to be reckoned with in Connacht history. Gwera Éadna in the southern Gwera Éadna of the southern Uafrioch was one of the best known rulers. In 649 he was defeated by the king of Tara, Diarmuid mac Éad O'Slane, in the Battle of Cairn Conal in Connacht. The event was the topic of a later saga, Cat Cairn Conal. Other literature about Gwyrna suggests he was involved in the politics of northern Munster and had established a reputation for piety. Ua Briain I rose to greater prominence in the 8th century. In 704, their aged king, Caollach mac Régalig, successfully defended the province against an invasion by Lonshoch mac Ongasu, king of Tara. Thereafter, Ua Briain I gradually won the allegiance of many other people in Connacht. Other peoples. Very specific, not just people, but different dynasties and subgroups. And from 773 they were able to block the Ua Friarach from winning the overkingship of the province. At the end of the 8th century, rivalry between different dynasties within Ua Briain led to conflict, with Mirgwis mac Tomultig emerging victorious from the battlefield in 799. His reign, which ended in 815, was characterized by vigorous efforts to impose more direct rule over the people of Connacht. In the years before his death, the shores of southwest Connacht were subject to Viking attacks, but the brunt of this was borne by the local population groups Fair Umail and Con Maecna. During the late 9th century, King of Ua Briain I often worked in allegiance with kings of Tara. The grandson of Mirgus, Crahur mac Taig Moor, participated in the campaign of Mael Shocknail of the southern Unail against the northern Unail in 860. 3 years later, I'm going to be honest, with all these connections, it probably would be good if I had some sort of PowerPoint, or not even a PowerPoint, like a connection based page that I could pull up and be like, here's the different kings, here's where they assisted each other and helped each other. But if I tried to do something like that, it would probably just look like an absolute mess, I'm gonna be honest. 3 years later, Crahur was brought under the subjugation of the northern Unail king of Tara, Ide Finalea, whom he had formerly opposed. He then allied with Ide to campaign against Brega. In the early 10th century, the continued efforts of the Unail to impose authority over Connacht led to 2 invasions during the reign of Cathal mac Concrahur. The first, which was led by Niall Glundubh in 913, was successful. The second, led by Doncha Don in 922, took place while the borders of Connacht were under Viking attack, but the Connachta prevailed. In the late 10th century, Connacht would become a battleground for the competing ambitions of Mael Shocknail MacDonald, king of Tara, and Brian Boru of Munster, with Brian gaining the upper hand. Ua Briain Brefain, in the northeast of Connacht, had extended their territory into the northwestern Midlands by the late 9th century. They wielded power over minor peoples who dealt between the boundaries of the northern and southern Unail. So I think they're specifically talking about, if I pull up that other map, this actually might be handy here for us. So this is, unfortunately I have to cover up Little Ruadh. Such are politics, even at that time. But this is talking about the Brefain, or Brifna, around here. And you can see different, it's somewhat the same, but you have different groups. You have the Ulaid here, Northern Unail, Ergiala, Mead, Lagan, Desmumu, Tuadumu. I think this is just, this is about a century after Brian Boru died. You see the Eaganocht are still around, but around this time, the Ua Briain are the main kind of political dominant force in that region. By the late 10th century, their power was sufficient to challenge the hegemony of the Ua Briain I by raising one of their own kings, Fergal Ua Ruarc, to the overkingship of the province. After Fergal's death, Ua Briún I raised their own candidate, Concrahur. The rivalry between their descendants, the Ua Ruarc and the Ua Concrahur, continued throughout the 11th century. Another group, the Ua Briún Sheola, who held land east of Loch Corrib, also contended for power and raised their own provincial overking, Fliabertoch Ua Fliabertig, who died in 1098. From 1102, Ea Concrahur of Ua Briún once again held the monopoly on the provincial overkingship. To compensate, the Ua Ruarc sought to extend their power in Meath, taking advantage of the decline of the southern Unail during the 11th century. Both groups, the Ua Crahur, or Concrahur, and Ua Ruarc, would play a significant role in the histories of the 12th century of Ireland. And now we get into Munster. The borders of Munster ran from Slieve Bloom, County Laois, in the northeast of to the Burren in County Clare in the northwest, and comprised the southwest coasts of Ireland. From the 6th century until the mid-10th century, the province was dominated by families that claimed a common prehistoric ancestor, Owen the Great. These Eganocta, or Egan the Great, these Eganocta, maybe it would be Oganocta. I'd have to double check. I feel like I've heard someone on a podcast call them the Eganocta, but maybe my pronunciation is wrong there. It could be Middle Irish pronunciation, or maybe Old Irish. I like the Eganocta though. Oganocht is what I'm going to go with. Oganocht. Oganocta were divided into several groups spread throughout the province, none of which were able to monopolise the overkingship of the province. The most prominent groups included Oganocht Glendamnoch, who dwelt in the upper Blackwater Valley in the south, and the Oganocht Cashel, who dwelt around the impressive Rock of Cashel in County Tipperary, which was a provincial royal site in eastern Munster. A handful of kings were raised by the Oganocht Glendamnoch from the late 6th century until the early 9th century. Oganocht Cashel were more successful in raising a number of overkings in the late 7th, late 9th, and 10th centuries. The provincial overkingship nevertheless remained open to other Oganocht groups in Munster. There were also multiple non-Oganocht people who were excluded from the overkingship until the 10th century, including the Fiarmaig Fina of Fermoy, Ely in the north, Osraig in the east, and the DC in the south. There's a relatively limited body of chronicle information from Munster to tell us about developing relations between these groups in the 6th and 7th century. From the 8th century, Munster kings competed with the growing power of the Unail and sought to extend their influence in Leinster. In 721, the recently ordained King of Oganocht Glendamnoch, Cathal mac Finguine, attacked Brega in an alliance with the Overking of Leinster, Muirchad mac Brian. During the 730s, Cathal campaigned against Brega and Leinster. These actions led to a royal meeting between Cathal and Eid Allan, a Kenal-known king of Tara, at Tirglass, in 737. The event was presumably intended to diminish the risk of open conflict, but it did not stop both kings from waging separate wars against Leinster in the following year. Cahall's bid to limit the influence of the O'Neill along the eastern borders of Munster had limited success. Nevertheless, he would later be revered as one of the most powerful overkings of Munster. The competition between the overkings of Munster and O'Neill drew in ecclesiastical politics. In 793, the Munster overking Aitri mac Cahal was ordained by the abbot of Emly in County Tipperary. This ceremony of royal ordination, which raised the status of a king to God's anointed, was new in Ireland. Not to be outdone, the Unail overking Ide mac Neil was ceremoniously ordained a few years later and was later known as Ide Ordina, Ide the ordained. The charismatic union of religion and politics was further exemplified in the reign of Feidlimid mac Crimhin, who succeeded Artry to the overkingship of Munster in 820. You're going to sleep. Have a nice day, everyone. Oh, thank you, Nex. Thank you for showing up, Nex. It's nice. It's always nice to have you. I hope you have a nice, lovely sleep. Either one of those ones that's like dreamless and it's just like you wake up lovely and refreshed, or good positive dreams. Either one. Rest well. Phelimid was a cleric linked with the ascetic movement of the Keeley Day, and in some later martyrologies, he was considered a saint. Despite these pious associations, Phelimid used violence against churches that opposed his power. He also attacked important religious establishments beyond Munster in a bid to extend his power in Ireland, even briefly holding Foranon, abbot of Armagh, captive in 836. The challenge Phelimid posed to the kings of Tara led to royal meetings with Cahur MacDoncada of the southern Unail and his successor, Niall Céile, of the northern Unail. One of Phelimid's more outlandish insults to Unail's power was the capture of Gormflea, daughter of a former king of Tara and the wife of the current king of Tara, Niall Céile. In 840, in the following year, Niall Céile faced Phelimid in battle near Cloncurry, County Kildare, which may have successfully limited Phelimid's ambitions in Leinster. The death of Phelimid in 847 harkened a period of political decline in Munster, as the province was beset by Viking attacks. There were short-lived reigns of 3 Munster overkings during the 850s. These circumstances aided the rising power of Osrig along the eastern borders of the province. In 859, Mael Shocknail of the King of Tara alienated Osrig from the control of the Munster overkings and subjected it to his own authority. The ambitions of Munster would rise again during the reign of Cormac mac Cuilleane, who campaigned in Meath, Connacht and finally in Leinster, where he met his death at the Battle of Ballamoon in County Kildare in 908. Cormac failed to staunch the decline of Ognocht power, and his successor in the provincial overkingship, Flea Burtoch, may have been from a non-Ognocht people. During the 920s and 930s, Munster overkings had limited success in countering and manipulating the growing power of the fortresses of Waterford and Limerick. Excuse me a moment. I am back. Apologies. I had to talk to someone very quickly, but we're all good now. Where were we? The ambitions of Munster would rise again. We read this. Here we are. In 939, Caoilachán of Cashel, Over-King of Munster, allied with the army of Waterford to attack Meath, but he spent several years in captivity as a result of his opposition to the Unail Over-Kings. Later in Caoilachán's reign, we hear of the emerging power of a formerly obscure group who took the name Dalcaish from northern Munster. The Dalcaish were King Matgamean Mac Kennetig rose in power to seize Cashel in 964 and sack Limerick in 967. So they're sacking the Viking fortresses now. His son, Brian Boru, achieved even greater fame by briefly establishing himself as Over-King of all of Ireland. Brian's rise to power was dramatic. First, he subdued rivals in Munster, and then waged war against Mael Shocknail, King of Tara. Not only did he subdue his opponents in Munster, actually his own family, his own dynasty, were, there was other parts of the Dalcaish that were competing for the kingship of that group, of that Dalcaish. So he had to beat them. He had to beat the other smaller groups around him. He had to beat the Ognocht and rise to power that way. And then he was faced with taking on all of the others. In 997, Mael Shocknail seemed to have recognised Brian as supreme king in southern Ireland. Brian won control over Dublin 2 years later, and then led further campaigns against Mael Shocknail, who offered his submission in 1002. Only the northern Unail and Ulster continued to hold out against him, but both recognised his overship by 1013. Brian's supremacy over Ireland was complete. However, it was short-lived. He would fall at the Battle of Clontarf in Easter 1014. The battle has often been portrayed as an epic struggle, with Brian Boru as a saintly victor over pagan foreigners. So, I already know what they're going to talk about here. They're going to talk about the fact that it was the people of Leinster, the Mead, allying themselves with the Dubliners, and it was like a rebellion against Brian. And there is, in a sense, yes, there were Irish people on that side, absolutely. But there is, in another book that I have, and it's very specific, it goes through a lot of the documents and a lot of the places outside of Ireland that wrote about this particular battle and this war, that really does kind of seem to push towards the idea that this was a little bit more than just a small group of people kind of rebelling, because from what I know, the Viking kingdom of Dublin basically got a lot of reinforcements at a time. But it's not as clear cut as it's the Gael versus the Gaul, the Gael versus the foreigner, as it would later become known in the annals. But there's definitely an aspect of that. These dramatic contrasts make for good stories, but have little basis in fact. Brian's forces at Clontarf included warriors from Hiberno Scandinavian ports, and his enemies included many Irishmen. The conduct of Brian's life was less than saintly, and the Dubliners by 1014 were not overtly pagan. Nevertheless, the propaganda potential of Clontarf was fully utilised by later authors, not least through the patronage of Brian's descendants, who continued to wield power over Munster in the 11th and 12th centuries. Brian's grandson, Tor del Boch, followed his ambition, attempting to establish himself as the High King of Ireland. Tor del Boch was the most powerful ruler in Ireland from 1072 until his death in 1086. His tactics included provoking civil war in Connacht, arranging the debt of opponents, and supporting the church and improving communication by building 2 bridges across the Shannon. His son Muirchaireachta ascended to the contested throne, but eventually came to dominate Ireland despite sustained opposition from Donald Mac Lochlainn, king of the Northern Unail, and Ruadh Uachruthur of Connacht. And now we get on to what I assume is the last province they're going to talk about, but they might talk about another few little groups. They're going to talk about the Viking kings, but we're going to get into Leinster, or Lagan. Before the 6th century, Leinster included midland territories of Meath and Brega that were seized by the Unail. By the 7th century, its borders extended from the Liffey Valley in the north and the boglands of Offaly to Slieve Bloom in the west, and then across the Slieve Margy and down to the Barrow Estuary into the south. The long coast of Leinster faced towards Britain and France, which gave its ports a position of influence in terms of overseas trade and cultural contexts. Early kings of the province had their power focused in the fertile plains of Liffey and Kildare. They included rulers of Ugarcon, Ua Enocles, Glosh, who lost power in the 6th century, and Umail in the 7th century. They were eventually displaced by the powerful dynasties of Udunlain, of the Udunlain. Udunlaina occupied the fertile plains of Kildare and claimed the ancient hill fort of Knockaulin as their ceremonial seat. The Onach of Leinster was associated with Carman, probably Carnal Way in County Kildare. From the 8th century, the Udunlaina were subdivided into 3 subgroups: the Dunchada, the Féilean, and the Muirdig, which alternated in their control of the kingship of Leinster from 738 until 1033. Leinster was naturally divided in 2 by watershed between the rivers Slaney and Liffey. In the south, the Chanslig were the main political dynasty. They had been rivals of the Dunlaina in the early 8th century, but were thereafter excluded from the overkingship of Leinster until the 11th century. Apologize if you heard that. I was just doing something. I need the light. I turned off the light because usually at night I turn off the light to stream. But then I was like, wait a minute, I'm reading a book. What am I doing? During the late 8th century, the Unail succeeded in imposing their authority over the Dunlaina. In the early 9th century, Feidlimid mac Crimhain, Over-King of Munster, sought to limit the power of the Unail in Leinster, but this effort was somewhat undone after his death. During the 10th century, the Dunleana were often embroiled in wars against Dublin. In 902, an alliance between Cearbhail mac Muirchán, Over-King of Leinster, and Mael Fianna, King of Brega, succeeded in expelling Viking leaders from the port, but Cearbhail's successor failed to stop their return to Dublin in 917. In 944, Brian, son of Mael Morda, King of Leinster, made another alliance with Brega to sack Dublin, but Dunleana failed to bring the port under their sway. From the late 10th century, intermittent alliances were formed between the Dubliners and different branches of the Dunleana. The most famous alliance was between Mael Morda mac Morchada, Over-King of Leinster, and Sitric, King of Dublin. Their troops fought side by side against Brian Boru at the Battle of Glenmama in AD 999 and at the Battle of Clontarf in AD 1014. According to the saga, the War of the Gaels and the Foreigners, Mael Morda was goaded into war against Munster by his sister Gormflia, the beautiful but vengeful ex-wife of Brian Boru. The reality is that an alliance between Leinster, Dublin and their overseas allies, which, by the way, when they mention overseas allies, I'm pretty sure what they mean is other Viking groups that were established all over England. So, again, I don't fully agree with the historian's view that, like, the idea that, it was... They're correct, it's not black and white, it wasn't just the Gael versus the foreigners. Obviously, there was the Leinstermen in there too. But I would argue that the Vikings were a very major threat, and the amount of allies that they could call, very well equipped, very well trained, and very willing to take over land, does make the defeat of them and sort of the breaking of the Viking power to effectively always be under the Irish Gaelic kings, a very significant event. Where were we? The reality is that an alliance between Leinster, Dublin and their overseas allies posed a significant challenge to Brian's ambitions to dominate all Ireland. The defeat and death of Mael Morda at Clontarf were significant blows to the power of the North Leinster Overkings, helping other dynasties attempt to win control of the province. There was an external bid to the Overkingship of Leinster. Hello, welcome in. What are we reading? We're reading a book about medieval Ireland. It's literally just called Medieval Ireland. It's a fairly decently sized book, but we're reading all about the peoples and the various kings and main political players from the 500s AD to the 1100s AD. This is kind of the section that this book is focusing on. We're actually almost coming to the end of this chapter, but welcome in, Danaos. Welcome in. I hope you enjoy your stay and you can relax a little bit. There was an external bid to the overkingship of Leinster from the royal line of Osric in the early 11th century. These people dwelt west of the River Barrow, almost acting as a buffer state between the provinces of Leinster and Munster. In 859, Mael Shachnail mac Maid Ruanid had drawn Osric away from the sphere of Munster influence. Osric grew in strength during the kingship of Cearbhail mac Dunleana, who died in 888, who allied with the Logas in the borderlands of Leinster against different Viking groups and won some notable victories. The declining power of the Oganocht in Munster and the Dunleana in Leinster, as a consequence of the growing ambitions of the Dalgaish and the Unail, provided further opportunities for Osric to expand their authority in the 11th century. Cearbhail's great-great-grandson, Doncad mac Gilla Pátric, king of Osric, was able to hold sway over Leinster for a brief period from 1033 to 1039. Dunleana briefly re-established their sway after his death during the reign of Muirchad mac Dunleana, but thereafter their hegemony was broken. In 1042, the Kinsleigh dynast, Diarmuid mac Mael na Mo, succeeded as Overking of Leinster. His rise to power was helped by his family ties as a grandson of Gilpatrick mac Doncada, King of Osrig. He also established a formidable military reputation and yielded power over the coastal towns of Waterford and Wexford. After Diarmid married the daughter of Doncadu Brian, King of Munster, he spent much of his reign battling against his father-in-law's ambitions to be over-king of Ireland. In 1052, Diarmid also brought Dublin under his sway, and he became drawn into the politics of the Irish Sea, even providing refuge for the sons of Harold Godwinson, the last Anglo-Saxon king of England in 1066. In Diarmaid's later years, he had a powerful ally in Tordelbach Brian, King of Munster, and grandson of Brian Boru, but his long reign ended during an attack on Meath in 1072. His descendants were nevertheless able to maintain their position as provincial over-kings of Leinster, shored up by the control of the important coastal towns of Dublin, Wexford, and Waterford, until, of course, the English invasion. The Viking Kings. Scandinavian raids on coastal ecclesiastical communities are documented from the 970s. Nevertheless, Vikings and their descendants continued to be regarded as foreigners or Gael. Or, sorry, not Gael. Gael was the term used to refer to the Gaels, the Irish. Gaul. In Irish society until the 12th century. In medieval and modern historiography, Vikings had been blamed for many things, including the decline of the Unail, the demise of the church, and the debasement in arts and learning. On the other hand, they have been praised for establishing towns and developing overseas trades. However, their impact may have been exaggerated. Hiberno-Scandinavian kings were not the main drivers in Irish politics during the Viking Age, although they did make up a noticeable contribution, so it wasn't like in England. It wasn't like in England where, for example, in 1066 you had the Vikings invading. They were defeated at Stamford Bridge, but you had then the Normans, another group of fucking Vikings. But, you know, during the 700s, the 800s, you know, you had the establishment of Northumbria. You had various large-scale invasions by the Vikings from Denmark or Frisia or various other groups, establishing major holdings all over England. It took a long time to get them out. However, I read this. But in Ireland, that didn't really happen. They took control, they were definitely players in the politics, but they mainly just controlled like kind of their strong coastal fortresses. The first record of Viking activity was in 794, when devastation of the islands of Britain is recorded in the Annals of Ulster. A series of raids against the Irish coasts are recorded in the following year. The attackers become more ambitious in successful years, engaging in combat with limited success against Irish population groups and picking on wealthy inland targets such as the churches of Glendalough, County Wicklow. I've gone walking in Glendalough. It's a lovely place, lovely forest. I should say hiking, I suppose. More cows. Not in Glendalough, but there is quite a lot of cows. You'll see a load of cows. Like sometimes you'll be driving along the road, and you might just come across an army of cows just walking along the road, being driven from one farm to another, and you just have to wait. Sometimes if they're coming towards you, you can even reach out and touch them, but I would be slightly wary of that because you don't know. I mean, if a cow got angry, they're big animals. And Armagh in 832. We cannot draw a neat distinction between a 9th century phase of Viking raiding driven by greed or bloodlust and a 10th century phase that was more calculated. From an early stage, Viking raids in Ireland display a political dimension. This is illustrated in the year 832 when the most important church in Ireland, Armagh, was attacked 3 times in 1 month. There was not much portable loot left to plunder on the third occasion. It may be that Viking groups were competing with each other to attack the site, but it seems more likely that the Viking armies were deliberately slighting the Unail as protectors of the church and highlighting their impotence. The first identified Viking leader in Irish records, is Saxilfir, Lord of the Foreigners, who was killed by the Cianachta in Eastern Ireland in 837. The mention of a name is indicative of communication between Vikings and Irish. It is around this time that records emerge of Viking camps established in Ireland. Most famously, Scandinavians first overwintered at Dublin in 841. Soon after, political alliances are recorded between Viking warbands and Irish. Oh my god, I forgot to turn down my alerts. Oh no, I do have my alerts turned down. Hello, Lapis. Hello. Welcome in. Thank you so much for the raid. Oh, you're so sweet. Always. Oh, you're raiding into me a lot. Thank you. Oh no. Guys, I didn't have cookies. I'm gonna have to download a PNG. No, you know what? I'll buy an image of one of the monkeys. I'll buy one of those terrible things, and he can hold out a cookie to you guys. I don't have cookies, Lapis. You know I don't have cookies. Oh no. Give you the cookie PNG. Okay, wait a minute. Let me look for a cookie PNG. Cookie. You know what? I'm gonna be even nice. I'm gonna say triple chocolate chip cookies for you guys. Triple chocolate chip. Oh, these are some good looking cookies. Hang on. Is this gonna work? I need to download the image. Hang on. Triple chocolate chip cookies. Where is it? Okay, there's your cookies. Go, take them. Hang on. I'll make them small for you guys. Go eat them. Nom 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 nom. Nom 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 nom. But welcome in Manasong. Welcome in Aquamug. Welcome in. And thank you again, Lapis. Those are so freaking good cookies. Those are some amazing looking cookies, I have to say. Those are some of the nicest looking cookies I've seen. I love cookies like that where you have the gooey center. Oh my god, this is all this talk about cookies is just making me really want cookies. And I know a place that does really, really nice cookies. That deserves a follow for sure. Well, thank you so much for the follow, Aquamog. Very appreciated. But look at those pieces of chocolate in that cookie. Hang on, I'm going to use the pointer that I have for pointing at the map. For pointing at the map to point at that. Look at that. Wait, no, hang on. I had to move it down. Look at that piece of chocolate right there. I'm going to go for a walk to a place that I know does really good cookies tomorrow. And I'm going to get myself one. They're big and round. They're quite flat. They're not like these ones where they're kind of thicker, but they're flatter, but they have that like gooey, chocolatey center. Oh my god, I'm drooling just thinking about it. Oh, what have you done to me? I'm meant to be reading. Now I'm just hungry. Now I'm just hangry. What have you done, Lapis? Okay, so I'm going to shrink them down a little bit more, and you guys can keep those. But welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. My name is Ruadh. I'm currently doing some reading all about medieval Ireland. We're coming to the end of this chapter. I don't know if I'm going to keep reading. I might do. I'll see. But we've been learning all about the different peoples that existed around the 500s and up to 1100s, and kind of the political leaders and figures and mythological ancestors of many of the peoples you see here, as well as the political intrigue that occurred in both within the provinces and kind of the rise of different groups of people, and of course the conflict that occurs between the provinces, such as the rise of the Unail and their dominance, the shared kingship over Tara, the High King, which would kind of give you the High Kingship of Ireland, but it wasn't really much of a thing back then. Connachta, Con Caetarach, Con of the 100 Battles, down in the Oganacht, and then the rise of Brian Boru from the Dalgaish. So a lot of stuff, and I'm going to be honest, I've been struggling with some of the names, and there's been so many names tossed around that it can sometimes be quite hard to keep track of everything, but I hope for those who were listening, it's been at least enjoyable. By all means, please continue the Earthworth. Thank you, thank you. And thank you again, Lapis, for the raid. Hang on, I'm holding my book upside down. Thank you again, Lapis. If you need to go get some water or a cup of tea, a little bit of honey, something sweet, something nice, nice little treat after a stream, do go rest. Do go take a nice long rest. Where were we? Oh yes. Soon after, political alliances are recorded between Viking warbands and Irish. They established as Vikings became a permanent feature of the Irish political landscape, they established coastal bases and competed among themselves for power. Two kings, Ivar and Olaf, emerged as the most powerful Vikings in Ireland in the 850s. These rulers allied together and led active careers in Britain as well as Ireland. I think this might be Ivar Stigurdsson. Possibly, which for some reason is a name that's just in my mind, but I could be wrong. You just love relaxing, seeing your streams. You send people my way every time you can. Aw, thank you so much, Lapis. That's so sweet of you. You're so sweet. In 871, they transported their accumulated wealth from their British campaigns, 200 ships and a great booty of people of England and of English and Britons and Picts back to Ireland. The Britons, I think, would have been considered the people of Wales at this time. The Britons, B-R-I-T-O-N. Ivar's departure from Britain seems to have prompted a story to circulate in England that he had been killed by divine vengeance, but his death is recorded in Irish chronicles in 873 as, quote, King of the Northmen of all Britain and Ireland. It is likely, given the record of Ivar's death in Irish sources, that he died in Ireland. In contrast, his associate, Olaf, who was killed in Alba, or north of Britain, the following year, is not mentioned in Irish chronicles. His death was recorded in the chronicles of the Kings of Alba. As there is no surviving English record of Ivar's death in 873, there has been some doubt that the Ivar mentioned in Irish and English sources are the same. However, the chronology of Ivar's recorded history in both islands, his high profile and references to his English captives and British campaigns in Irish annals, make a compelling case that there was one, rather than two kings called Ivar, operating in Britain in the 860s and the early 870s. The historical sources are complemented by the early archaeological evidence of the links between Vikings active in Northumbria and Ireland. You're going to have some dinner while relaxing to my reading? Oh, nice. Well, I hope you're having something very tasty. But again, that goes back to my idea that I disagree with this idea that the Brian Boru versus Leinster and the Vikings of Dublin cannot just be called, it was just infighting. I do think that there was a significant Viking contingent that were looking to really take establishment away from what was becoming a significant rising threat, a true over-king of Ireland, who would subjugate all of the Vikings, and had done for a long time. So I do think that there is something to the idea that this battle truly broke the Viking power. Now, of course, they still held land, they still held towns and ports, but from the perspective of being able to threaten the Gael, I do believe that Brian Boru's victory cemented that fact. Or cemented that decline for them. Ivar's family continued to play an important role in Ireland. At least 3 sons and 1 brother survived him. His descendants would rule over Dublin and other Viking settlements in Britain and Ireland for generations. Their power was, however, subject to constant challenge. Ivar's grandsons suffered a major defeat in 902, when the political elite of Dublin were driven out by a coalition between the over-kings of Brega and Leinster. Archaeological evidence suggests that not all of the port's populations left. Dublin's elite escaped half dead across the sea. The political refugees ended up in different destinations: northwest England, Scotland, and northern France. Events in 902 are credited to have brought swathes of territory in northwest England, the Isle of Man, and western Scotland into Viking hands. However, we only have historical evidence to suggest that Wirral, in Cheshire, was newly colonised by Vikings from Dublin in 902, and there was a failed attempt to take land in Anglesey. Other areas may have been colonised at different times. The estuaries of the Dee and Mersey would be a natural landfall for people leaving Dublin. It is debatable whether the Vikings of Dublin had numbers or resources to make wide-ranging territorial conquests after their ignominious expulsion. It seems more likely that Hiberno-Scandinavian exiles settled among existing Viking communities, so it could be argued that Vikings had settled in parts of Lancashire and Cumbria before 902. The distribution of the Gaelic place name Erga, or Sheeling, in Viking settlements in the Irish Sea region and the North Atlantic suggests that settlers came to northwest England from the Hebrides as well as from Ireland. Welcome in, Dee. Welcome in, Dee. How are you? How you doing, Dee? You nice and cozy? You getting up for the morning? I hope you're enjoying the start of the weekend proper. The dynasty of Ivar returned to Ireland in the second dynasty in the second decade of the 10th century and retook the ports of Waterford and Dublin. The same family held York during the 920s and 930s. These decades witnessed the political zenith of Hiberno-Scandinavian power. Dublin, Waterford and Limerick developed as towns in the 10th century, and a series of Viking camps were established as coastal and inland sites as urban centres competed to secure their economic hinterlands and spheres of influence. You're an EP angel girl. But I'm not surprised. I was very EP when I woke up this morning, because I was out drinking with friends, and we drank quite a bit. I think I had... What did I have? I think I had about 10... I think it came out to about 10 or 11 whiskeys. So that was fun. Yeah, it was loads of fun. It was a work thing, but we had a free bar, so I got about... I think I got about 8 whiskeys, with chasers. All Coke Zero though, because I don't take like... If I got a chaser that had calories every drink, that would be way too much. Whoa. I don't drink very often, but when I do, thankfully I didn't have a headache though. I didn't have too bad of a headache. 10 whiskeys? Yeah, like 10 shots of whiskey. Over the course of quite a while, but like, stares and judgment. Why are you judging me, Olga? How dare you? And welcome in Olga Okami. For those of you who don't know, both Dee and Olga are very nice streamers, and you guys should definitely check them out. Olga was talking in Russian during her stream earlier today that I was watching, just before streaming myself, and I was falling asleep. And not because she's boring, because she's not. She's very entertaining. Very, very entertaining. But her voice is so soft. When she was speaking Russian, I was like falling asleep at my desk. Is like bottle, or also bottle. 10 by 50 is 500 milliliters. Yeah, when you put it like that, that was a lot of whiskey. That was a lot of whiskey. But I will say, it was over the course of like... What? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11... It was over the course of like 7 hours, 8 hours. That's not much. And there was food. There was a lot. Math can be powerful. Yeah, it kind of puts things into perspective. I feel like I drank the first like 4 a little bit too quickly. That's a milk carton of whiskey. Milk carton, standard units of measurement in Australia. Oh, that drink is at least 4.5 milk cartons. That would be a massive drink. What am I talking about? Well, over a day it can be not so bad, but still kind of impressive. I'm just glad I didn't have a hangover. I was very tired, and I was saying earlier, I've said it a few times this stream, but when I woke up, you know, I had that husky morning voice, but it was even worse because of how like dehydrated I was. And I was like, I only thought of it after I'd kind of waken up a little bit more. But I was like, oh, I should have recorded a voice note. Because I think people like that type of stuff. You're joining very late. 10 whiskeys and no hangover. I will also say there was barbecue food. So I was drinking and eating. So like there was a bit of soakage there, you know. You are broken Russian. You might be drunk, dorky drunk after 2 beers. You were saying that you rolled poorly on your Russian genes for alcohol. Yeah, last lot. I don't know. I have gotten hangovers a few times, but that's usually come from being from beer. If I drink beer, that's when I get a hangover. And it has to be a lot of beer. Like the last time, okay, it wasn't just a hangover. The last time that I drunk was not above under. You have an excuse of being under 120 pounds. What is that in kg? That would be 45, 90. That would be about 40. 90 pounds is about 40 kg. So 120. So that's about under like into the 55 rate kg range. So that you're quite fit, aren't you, Olga? You go to the gym a lot. You do a lot of cool stuff. I remember seeing you talking about like ice diving or something. Not ice diving, but like, going into a very like ice cold lake. You never drink beer, but cider always gives you a hangover. Though to be fair, so does vodka. Cider. Dee, are you a cider person? 53 kilo after bulk. Olga, you're so light. I could shoulder press you. I could pick you up and lift you above my head. Are you being judged? How much cider do you need to drink to get drunk? I don't know. I don't really drink much cider myself, so Last Lot will have to fill us in on that one. But yeah, I the last time I got really bad, and this wasn't just a hangover. This was like 3 or 4 days of getting sick at least. I would say 4 or 5 times a day, sometimes more, depending on how much I was doing. It was horrible. It was one of the worst experiences after a drink I've ever had. But it also came after one of the greatest nights of drinking I've ever had. So that kind of makes sense. It was in Austria. It was in Austria, in Salzburg. And I was in a place called the Augustina Brau, and there was a big brass band. There was we had liter mugs of beer, and this was pretty, I don't know if it was good beer or not. I'm not much of a beer person, but like I want to say we had about 5 of them. I think I was on my 6th, and I drank about a quarter of that. But I'm going to be honest, things were quite hazy at that point. Things were very... I was not in a good state. Thankfully, I was with a lot of family, so it was fine. And they were much more seasoned drinkers than me. But oh my god, like I've woken up from a hangover before, and I've gone and get a cure. Which, for those of you who don't know, a cure, because sometimes I find other places don't do this, but like if you have a hangover, if you drink more alcohol, which it's horrible to do at the start, but if you drink more alcohol, it goes away. Because you're putting back into your system the stuff that's causing this pain, that's causing the hangover. You haven't drank cider since like 2021. You're a Maggioli person. Cold plunge. That's what you were. That's what it was. The cold plunge. I still struggle to do cold showers, and here's Olga like diving into a cold plunge and just being like, yeah, it's fine. She's so strong. You need big ice maker. Korean rice wine. I think I've heard of this, D. I want to try that. What I've heard is that in Japan you have to be very careful because they have these beer cans, but you have to be really careful because the percentage on them is way higher than one would expect. And it can be very people can go over there, go like on a holiday, and they'll be drinking these cans and they won't realize until it hits them. That's kind of what happened with me. I was grand after I started feeling buzzed after about 3 or 4 shots of whiskey, with a chaser again. I wasn't just shotting back whiskey, and I wouldn't take a shot of whiskey. You'd put it in a nice glass and sip at it. You'd sip at the whiskey if you were drinking it straight, which I have done a few times. That's very nice to do. But I think after about my 8th, I was like, Oh, there it is. There it is. It went from that nice, happy, like, talk with everyone feeling to being like, ooh, I'm a little unsteady. I'm a little bit unsteady. You usually switch to vodka after about 5 pints or so. That's probably a good idea. Although I wouldn't be mixing drinks too much. You would like to do it each morning, but water there here is so warm. It's 25 Celsius. What's going on over there? It's cold tap water here. You need a lot of ice. I can just imagine every morning some like ice company delivers like 5 bags of ice to Olga just so she can put it into a tub and jump into it. Your full freezer can be enough for more cold seasons, but not for summer. Ah, that sucks. That sucks. Does that result in a bigger hangover later, or does it avoid it properly? The cure, I think what it does is it just tries to minimize the headache. Because I think essentially what happens is you use a cure. Now, obviously, some people go, their cure is just an introduction then to go drinking again later on in the day. I did that in Poland, in Krakow. I had a little bit of a headache, and they were like, here, have a cure. I had a lovely, very sweet martini. Not a martini, sorry, very sweet cocktail. I felt grand, and then later that night we went out drinking again. But it's more so, the alcohol is leaving your body. That's what's causing the horrible feeling. So you take in a little bit more. It helps kind of just subside that effect. And by the time that alcohol is leaving, you drank a lot more water, you've had food, you've started to recover. So if you don't go on a mad one, on a bender, again, I think generally it helps. You might get a little bit more of a headache later on in the day, but probably not much. You had to Google what a cold plunge. It looks really cool. I want to try it. I think I would, like, I can picture Olga, like, straight face, dive into it and just get out and just be like, yep, that's fine. And then I would do it and I'd scream like a little girl. I reached pitches I didn't even know my voice could do. You just have to get used to it, or it's your inner Russian that's actually not broken. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Olga. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like, you guys over there just adapted to the cold in a way that I'm not. Although I love the cold. I love when it's cold. You love to go outside and to tan a bit with bag of ice. So when it gets hot, because the south sun and 35 degrees Celsius, 35 degrees Celsius, dude, I can't. I started struggling. I started like getting grumpy at like 24 plus. That's when I started getting grumpy. And just rub it into skin or add a bit of water and just pour icy stuff over it. Very refreshing. I was doing that today, actually. I went for a run. It wasn't a particularly long run. I think it was about 3.5k, maybe 4k. Yeah, I'd say 4k, because I ran a little bit and then I went and did gym. Then I went for the run itself. And I think maybe if I add both of those, it comes to about 4k. But I was sweating and warm after it, and it was a nice, lovely sunny day. So it was a lovely little run. But I still had like a full water bottle, and it was lovely cold water. So I was kind of like, as I was walking along the road, I was pouring the water on myself, and I got some very weird looks, but I was like, listen, I need to cool down. It almost hurts when you do this, but you kind of get used to it. Starts from 15 and go down a month, and you'll get used to it. I don't know. I'd have to actually go to places that are really warm to start acclimatizing. But I've never properly used like a bag of ice to cool down. Like I don't tan much. I don't like lie down and tan. I hope we all wear sunscreen. So anyway, I'm gonna go back to the reading. Listen. I probably should wear more sunscreen. I probably should. But listen, I don't get out in the sun that much. I'm not a recluse or anything. I just typically, like, if it's very sunny, I'm just like, if I go into the sun, I'll be warm and sweaty. I don't want to. Unless there's like a beach, then it's like, that's fun. But maybe I should start wearing some more. That might be a good idea. I won't burn D, I promise. I'm going to finish off this chapter because The UV are strong with clouds. I know they are. I know you're meant to wear sunscreen even when there are clouds. I just wrinkly Ruadh. No, I'm not wrinkly. I'm not wrinkly. Hmm. Listen. Canonically, I'm like 1800 years old. I'm like 1800 years old. Do you see a wrinkle on this face? Do you see a wrinkle on this smooth face, D? I don't think so. Now listen. I'm probably going to become like O'Sheen and Tiernan Hogue when he got off the horse and he touched the soil of Ireland for the first time in hundreds of years after spending his time in Tiernan Hogue, and turned to instantly age like 300 years and turn to dust. Or I'll meet St. Patrick and we'll go talking, because that's another version of that tale, that O'Sheen turns very old. He goes to live out the rest of his short life, and he meets St. Patrick, and he tells St. Patrick all about the Fianna and the tales of Fionn Mahul. Sunscreen is important, however you tan very easily. You often neglected this before, but not here. Too strong. It burns, really almost a feel of pressure. Yeah, I mean, in a place that's 35 degrees, that sounds like it would burn, and especially in Australia. The sun is scary. It is. It's a giant ball of fire. I would also be intimidated, but I also see it as a great example of Plato used to use the sun as a metaphor for the good, for the one, from which everything flows, from which everything is created. And this is normal. There's many religions that had sun gods. Christianity probably does the same thing, where it would make a metaphor of the sun as the life-giving thing. But that's a whole nother conversation. But I do quite like the Plato description of the sun as the one, where it radiates out and illuminates everything, provides structure and intelligibility in the conception of philosophy. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna start reading my book before I bore all of you. Where were we? Here we are. The dynasty of Ivar returned to Ireland in the second decade of the 10th century and retook the ports of Waterford and Dublin. The same family held York during the 920s. Oh, I read this, yeah. So this was kind of the zenith of the Hiberno-Scandinavian power. The rivalries between the leaders of Dublin and Limerick reached a climax in 937. Who was that? Hang on. I have to move this. Welcome in, fall silently. Fall silently. I hope you fall asleep silently and very comfily. Like little Ruadh over here. Little Ruadh comfy. I like my little headbands in art and stuff. I just like seeing the headband. It's cute. It's a way for me to very quickly tell who's me, Where were they? The rivalries between the leaders of Dublin and Limerick reached a climax in 937 when the Limerick king Olaf Scabbyhead, I'm not making that up, Olaf Scabbyhead, I think he was a bald man, and he probably took a lot of axes to the dome, was killed by his Dublin opponents, probably by an axe to the dome. The wars between Viking rulers also entangled Irish dynasties. For example, Muirchertach, son of Niall of the Northern O'Neill, opposed Dublin in the 930s, but his rival, Matadon, Over-King of Ulster, allied with them. Dublin's power would be compromised by successive attempts of the dynasty of Ivar to shore up their fortunes in Northumbria from the late 920s. In 937, Olaf Guthfrithson of Dublin was heavily defeated alongside forces from Alba and Strathclyde in the Battle of Brunanburh in northern England. The victor was King Aethelson, the first ruler to unite England. Sensing weakness, the overkings of northern and southern O'Neill allied to attack Dublin in 938, but they failed to take it. York was brought back under Wessex control in 939, but held with some difficulty. In 944, a coalition of the overkings of Leinster and Brega attacked and sacked Dublin, the same year the dynasty of Ivar was driven out from Northumbria. In 948, Dublin was attacked again when the Dubliners again failed to hold York. I noticed a little error in the text. They have again, so they have the Dubliners again failed again. It's so easy to miss a little thing like that. The canny manoeuvres of Irish kings to exploit the Dubliners' moments of political weaknesses marked the beginning of political decline for the dynasty of Ivar. It also compromised their position in Northumbria, which was permanently brought under the control of Wessex in 954. The late 10th century witnessed greater successes for Irish dynasties to reduce the political ambitions of Hiberno-Scandinavian towns. In 967, King Matgammon of the Dalgaish dynasty, Brian Boru's father, defeated the Vikings of Limerick at Sallowhead. 10 years later, the port was brought under the direct control of Matt Magain's, his brother, sorry. I thought it was his father. Matt Gamain's brother and successor, Brian Boru, who was the Overking of Munster and later achieved temporary overship over all Ireland. The last Viking king of Limerick and his sons were executed on Scattery Island on Brian's orders. The port of Waterford chose to ally with the Dalgaish against Dublin. In 975, Mael Shocknail, Overking of the Southern Unail, marked his ascension by attacking Dublin. 5 years later, he would win a significant victory over Olaf Cuaran, King of Dublin, at the Battle of Tara in 980. The alliance of Ireland's two most powerful kings, Mael Shocknail and Brian Boru, brought further defeat for Dublin at the Battle of Glenmama in 999. During the early 11th century, Dublin and Waterford continued to operate with a degree of autonomy, but the political influence of Hiberno-Scandinavian rulers was in decline. The Battle of Clontarf between the forces of Brian Boru and Dublin in 1014 is often seen as a decisive victory over the Hiberno-Scandinavians, but the story is longer and more complex. After the battle, Dublin continued to maintain a degree of independence during the long reign of King Sitric Silkenbeard. Again, this name was brought up earlier when I was reading the book, and I just like when I picture a guy named Sitric Silkenbeard, I kind of just want to I feel like I just want to touch his beard. I just want to see what his beard feels like. Circa 995 to 1036. Thereafter, Dublin was increasingly subject to provincial overkings and contenders for the overkingship of Ireland. By 1052, Waterford had been brought under direct control of kings of Leinster, although Dublin retained local kings until 1171. The practice of kingship in Hiberno-Scandinavian towns was similar to that of Irish rulers. Olaf Cuaran bears an epithet of, quote, the sandal, which may refer to an inaugural rite involving a shoe that has comparisons with Gaelic kingship rituals. The shampoo add hair but as a beard. Are you talking about the... I love that recent Head and Shoulders ad that I've been seeing. It's genuinely a great ad. It's like there's two very fine looking businessmen, and one of them has a great head of hair. Obviously it's a hair ad, and he walks in and he sees some Head and Shoulders on the table, and he's like, Head and Shoulders? I didn't know you have dandruff. And then the other guy looks at him and he goes, I don't. And then it goes on to talk about their new formula or whatever, but I think if they just cut it there and he looks at the camera and gives a little wink, I think yeah, exactly. That's the face he makes. That's the face he makes. I think genuinely it's such a simple ad. It's so great. I like the simplicity in the dialogue. Yeah, smug face. Where were we? Oh yes, here we were. We also have a praise poem in Irish that refers to this king. However, the eclectic culture of the coastal ports may also have given a distinct character to aspects of Hiberno-Scandinavian kingship. There is a reference to a ring of Torer and the sword of Carlos, serving as emblems of royal authority in Dublin in the 10th century. Swords and rings are often associated with kingship in Irish literature, but the personal names linked with the Dublin insignia seem to derive from a non-Irish context. The assembly site, or Thing, mound in Dublin, that once stood near College Green, represents a Scandinavian form of government. This is where the kings, royal heirs, viceroys, and law speakers, who were mentioned with reference to the government of the town, would have held public assemblies on legal and military matters. So it sounds kind of like our version of an Ogluk. An innovation imported from England rather than Scandinavia was the minting of coins, which began in Dublin in the 990s. The production, regulation, and imagery of these coins would serve political as well as economic ends and cast light on the relations between England and Dublin during the reign of Sitrick Silkenbeard. Ireland's coastal towns were connected with a widespread Scandinavian-speaking community that brought an eclectic mix of cultural influences to Ireland. Hiberno-Scandinavian kings controlled Ireland's major coastal ports and developed navies, which made them brokers in international trade and mercenary fleets. There is evidence of foreign alliances between Dublin, Alba, and Strathclyde in the 10th century. In the reign of Sitrick Silkenbeard, an alliance was developed with Knut, King of England, Denmark, and Norway. Knut seems to have encouraged Dubliners to attack Wales and develop a base in Anglesey to serve his interests in Wales. As Irish kings increasingly controlled affairs in Hiberno-Scandinavian towns, they were drawn into the sphere of English politics. During the reign of Edward the Confessor of England, the Over-King of Leinster, Diarmait mac Mael na Mo presided over Dublin, and the port became a haven for English aristocrats who had fallen from royal favour. The exile Harold Godwinson raised a fleet of 9 ships from Ireland in 1052, which helped restore his family to power in England. In the aftermath of the Battle of Hastings in 1066, 2 of Harold's sons fled to Diarmid, where they led abortive attempts to reconquer England from Ireland. The role of Hiberno-Scandinavian ports as a conduit for external political connections would continue during the 12th century, and not have the best consequences in the following. Conclusion. By the end of the 11th century, the identifier of the different provinces of Ireland had been firmly established. And I'm actually going to change the map we have up. This is kind of around the 11th century. Or 10th century, I should say. Or no, sorry, not. That would be the second. So that'd be the 12th century. My apologies. By the end of the 11th century, the identity of the different provinces of Ireland had been firmly established. Their political divisions, leading dynasties, and major churches continued to exert influence over the politics of Ireland into the late Middle Ages. The most significant political theme to emerge from the early Middle Ages was the inability of any single royal dynasty to establish overarching power in Ireland. This heralded the continued political division of Ireland and competition over resources in later centuries. The notion of a unified Ireland that was developed from an early time by the Kings of O'Neill would nevertheless have a lasting place in Irish political discourse. And you can really see in this time period, 1000, after the rise of Brian Boru, and then his sons, Muirchaitheach and Tor Deltoch, you start to see the overlordship, the kingship of Ireland, the high kingship, begin to get closer and closer. It seems like it's exactly what happened in England. It's getting to that point. But that is the end of that chapter. And I think I might call it there for this reading stream. Because my voice is still a little bit hoarse, I feel, from the night out. All the shouting to people when there's music in bars, and people are so loud. Do you guys ever think about that? If you're in like a bar and you're talking away to your friends, at a certain point, as the night goes on, you just start shouting at each other because everyone else is so loud. Now you're adding to the loudness, but you almost have to shout. But the next chapter is going to be all about religion from 500 to 1100 AD. And the very first topic that it deals with is Christianization. So we're going to have a very fun stream then, I'm sure. Some people will, I know, my friend Son Albionis isn't very happy when he hears about things like the Christianization of pagan regions, thinking about all the things that were lost, the actual histories of those areas. But you know, it's an important part of the history, and Christianity and Catholicism would eventually become a very, very integral part of the Irish identity. Although what is interesting is the Irish, and I'm sure the book will deal with it, but you know, it was known as the island of monks and scholars, or saints and scholars. That was it. They developed a unique style of monasteries that was different to the usual kind of parish things that you would see on the continent, and this would end up being brought over to the continent by various saints and priests and monks all over the world. All over Europe anyway. Welcome in, Dragon Man 75. Your voice is perfect for this speech. You have one for me to read. Ooh, okay. This book is quite long, so it'll take time for me to get to something to read. But if you do have suggestions, I would absolutely welcome them. Ooh, what is this? Let me take a quick read of it. That's a very pessimistic view. It's almost like kind of a sounds like a not Nietzschean. Nietzsche was a little bit more trying to find a will to power, so to speak. That feels familiar. Madara. That's what this is. Oh, it's from... it's a Naruto thing, apparently. Madara Uchiha. Okay, I'll do it. Wait, no, hang on. I don't know how he reads it, though. I don't know how he reads it, so I'm gonna have to... Wake up to reality. Nothing ever goes as planned in this accursed world. The longer you live, the more you realize that the only things that truly exist in this reality are merely pain, suffering, and futility. Listen, everywhere you look in this world, wherever there is light, there will always be shadows to be found as well. As long as there is a concept of victors, the vanquished will also exist. The selfish intent of wanting to preserve peace initiates war, and hatred is born in order to protect love. There are nexuses, causal relationships that cannot be separated. You love long jokes or copy passes that roll in and with time. Yeah, you get a chance to kind of read through a little bit, and then like they hit you with the next part. You're imagining sides of the road Doomsday Yeller. Oh, you're just traveling along. You guys come visit Ireland, and you're taking like a little hike in Glendalough or some other little nice area in the Irish countryside, and you just see me at the side just shouting at the trees for some reason, just proselytizing and telling you guys that it's over, we're doomed, we're all gonna die. I've never watched Naruto or any of the main like big animes. I really haven't read much of them. With or without Irn-Bru? Probably without. I think that's more of a Scottish thing. I'm pretty sure. I think I've had it. I definitely remember. I think The end is nigh, the end is nigh, the end is nigh. Repent, 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 for soon you will meet your maker. Whoa. And then I jump off a cliff, and that last sound you heard was me falling. The whoa was me falling. Bang. That was me hitting the ground. It was a really, really high cliff. It was a really high cliff. I was falling for a while. Ooh, ooh! When I see Genzuki, ooh, ooh! Pretty much. Ooh, ooh, Genzuki. Oh yeah, I still have those chocolate chips in the corner. Hang on, let me. Nom 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 nom. Nom 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 nom. There we go. Nice chocolate chips. Thank you, Crespian, for the hydrate reading. Thank you. But Dragon Man, I hope you enjoyed that reading. I don't know how he read it in the actual thing, if he did read that in the anime, but I hope my rendition was decent enough. But I think I was talking just beforehand about that the Irish developed a very, very unique form of Christianity. That I think, what was the name of it again? I think it was just Celtic Christianity, but I think there was a specific name that I can't think of. But it did create a little bit of tension between Ireland and Rome, kind of the main Catholic side. Because the Irish monks would have differing opinions on certain things, and they'd constantly be debating stuff. But I think we're going to get deep into that in the next reading stream. But I think now what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you guys off somewhere. I'm not entirely sure who I'm going to send you off to. Who is anyone specifically doing some ASMR? Thanks for the stream. Thank you for coming along, Crespian. It's always a pleasure to have you guys. I hope you guys enjoy the reading. Yeah, and my bumbling attempts to pronounce names. I raided into Rakudo recently, so maybe not Rakudo. Is anyone else doing ASMR? Okay, you know what? I'm gonna give a warning. I'm gonna give a warning right now. I'm not gonna raid into someone doing ASMR. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna raid into my good friend Diamandis. He's not playing ASMR. He is playing Roblox, and he is playing. I forget what it's called. It's Survivor or something. It was some show. It was some show where like they were on an island, there was teams, and they like competed in competitions, and they'd get voted off, and they'd have alliances and stuff. I think that was Survivor. I think that's the game, but it's the Roblox version of this. But I've watched Daya play this before, and it is so entertaining. It's genuinely amazing. It's great to watch. But I need to go and have a cup of tea, so I'm going to start the raid, because I've often done that where I talk about, oh, I'm going to send you guys off, and I say goodbye, and then I forget I have to wait 10 seconds to raid. But thank you guys so much for coming along. Garev Mila Mahagat and Song of Oil. And it's I do genuinely love getting to share Irish history, getting to read, and even if you're not even really listening for the history itself, just kind of helping people relax. So thank you guys so much for coming along, and I will see you guys next stream, hopefully tomorrow, probably.